Hey guys, Ryan here. A little bit more of an interesting video today as I wanted to try out some stuff. We will be looking over the live stream that literally just finished, and then of course the new video that went out on Anthem talking about some new details, but most importantly some new gameplay. We had a bit of a switcheroo with the live stream that happened just now. We were expecting some new information on weapons and other bits and pieces. Instead, we got some end game content, so we'll be talking mostly about that to begin with. My name is Ryan Central. I know I look like a fat salmon peg, but that isn't the case. Do subscribe to the channel if you want more Anthem stuff. We still have the giveaway going on at the moment for one standard copy of Anthem, so do definitely check that out if you are interested. All you need to do is follow me here on my Twitch. It's not really difficult, and you can unfollow if you want to once the giveaway is done. I'm okay with that totally. Regardless, let's get into the gameplay, which you are seeing on screen. As I said, it was a bit of a switcheroo. I got my notepad here, so I'm going to be reading off some of the notes that I made, some of the really important factors, because it was a legendary contract. We know that the end game at launch at least is going to be predominantly Strongholds, which are the 4-man instances, the dungeon runs, and legendary contracts, which we just assume were more difficult missions. But we got a look at one from the Arcanists, and one of the main things to really note about this is this was played on hard difficulty at max level. So at max level you have easy, medium, hard, which you get all the way to level 30. Then once you're at level 30, you unlock Grandmaster 1, 2, and 3. Now you might need to do some other bits and pieces to actually unlock Grandmaster 1 to then go Grandmaster 2 and so on and so forth, but this is on hard, and you can clearly see that the devs are struggling this. Granted, they're not the best gamers in the world, but they really are trying to keep up with some of the bosses that they've run into, and that's pretty much what this mission is. They actually played this mission through twice. The first time, because it's still a beta build, it didn't quite work, the mission didn't progress for whatever reason, so basically they had to restart the whole mission. But the interesting thing to note is that the legendary contract on the second playthrough was a little bit different to the first. So these are dynamic missions, aren't exactly the same every single time. They can spice it up by taking you to a different area or spawning different enemy mobs. Speaking of the mobs, you have a legendary Ursix causing a lot of problems at the start of both of these legendary contracts, and then the second sort of engagement, fight, whatever you want to call it, had lesser Ash Titans, lesser legendary Ash Titans, technically about 3 or 4 of them, and the fight took about 5 minutes for them to completely clear it. It took them a while. The mobs were a little bit bullet spongy, if I'm being honest, but ultimately it was difficult. It was a challenge, and I think that was one of the main things that people wanted to see out of Anthem, with people complaining about how the hard difficulty from our gameplay from Stockholm, for example, seemed a bit easy, and also the EI being a little bit rudimentary, so to speak, being very confused, be like, oh, what's going on, that kind of stuff. AI looked a lot stronger here, whilst it did take a while for the team to kill the mobs, and for the most part they did struggle. There were a lot of occasions where they got caught out by the Ash Titans especially, and everybody got downed. I think everybody went down in these missions, so very difficult for these guys to play on not the hardest difficulty. So if you want a challenge, Anthem seems like it's going to have it. Looking quickly at the Ranger, we can see some of the abilities that they had. They had the Spark Beam, which is like an Iron Man laser. It seems to lock on to an extent. Doesn't look all that mighty, but it still did a good amount of damage. Really cool to see. And also a Sticky Grenade, which sticks to a target and then explodes. The support ability that Ben had equipped here was the Muster Point, which increases the damage of people in that aura by like 20%. It might be a little bit more dependent on the rarity and the actual like support ability. It might have better stats, for example, and yeah, it was just generally like a really solid build. Didn't quite have the priming or detonating factors, but still put out a good chunk of damage with a full team of people. I'm not 100% if you need a full 4-man group for legendary contracts, so if you do or you don't, if you know, let me know in the comments below. We also got to see a couple of emotes, not a massive thing that I really wanted to highlight, but still some pretty cool stuff in there. But I think the main takeaway from a lot of people was basically this gameplay looks tough and you need to have the best gear that you can get. The game awareness and the communication that you all just don't get completely taken down to make sure that you can win these challenges. It does seem to take a little bit long. It's kind of like, as some people said, 4 people in a WoW dungeon trying to just grind through it. They can still manage it, but it's just going to take time. It felt a little bit like that, but it was still really cool to see Anthem being a challenging, difficult game for a lot of people, regardless of how skilled they are at the game, just because of damage and mitigation and the abilities that you had. If you want to check out the full stream, I'm not just going to take it and throw it on here, for example. You can check it in the description below, the Twitch VOD at least. It'll be on YouTube at some point soon if you keep an eye out. But generally, what did you guys think? Did you like the difficulty, the challenge that seemed to be in these missions? Or do you feel it took too long or it was a bit bullet spongy? Do let me know in the comments below. I'll be really interested to hear what you guys think. And now we're going to be talking about the new video that went out on the Anthem channel, speaking of which, going over some bits and pieces that you may have missed, and just basically having a big solid breakdown of the whole thing. But this legendary contract mission, I'd definitely give it a check out if you haven't already. This might be common knowledge to a lot of people, but I personally didn't know this. As the Ranger, you can ult whilst flying, and we do see a couple of examples of this in this trailer demo. I'm not quite sure what this kind of video is technically. It's more of a guide, really, like a basic beginner's guide. I sent my dad this, for example, but like you do see the Ranger flying along, being able to use his ultimate. No other Javelin can do that. Even the Interceptor with the blades loses the ability to fly when doing it. So worth noting, really cool. Actually makes me consider the Ranger a bit more. I think it's going to be the main choice for a lot of people. There is a lot of lore in the story of Anthem, in this trailer at least, giving you a rundown of basically what's going on, regardless of how much you care or not. But there is some really interesting stuff to highlight. There's, of course, this bald guy that's looking like he's in a spot above it. I don't know if he's enjoying that feeling, that sensation or not. But then we do see the Monitor, who is basically the main antagonist, the main big bad in the story, talking to you as the character, saying how they want control of the Anthem to basically become God in this world because they have all the tools that was highlighted in the trailer, so I won't repeat that. But the one thing I did want to highlight is that you're wearing the Storm armor and you can actually see the face of your character, which you customize yourself. I do believe that it's going to be a case of you pick a certain face as opposed to changing the size of your nose or your eyes or making yourself look as beautiful or ugly as possible. I think you pick a preset and then that's what you go with, but you really don't see your face all that much. This might be one of the few opportunities that you get to. Speaking of the Dominion, there's definitely a Star Wars vibe here going on. One thing that was brought up is that this bald guy is the Monitor, but you can see here they're stood next to each other, so that's really not the case. You can also see some of the Furies in the background, which are the big lanky monsters that you do encounter later on in this demo. This is the general system on how you will pick your Javelin. For example, at level 2, you pick your first one. This is the screen that you will see, right? You'll have choice of all of the 4. This screen right now is probably level 24 or something. You've unlocked the rest of the Javelins. Now it's a case of you unlocking the Interceptor. But this is just how the system would look, giving you a good glimpse at all the Javelins, what they do, with some details in the bottom that you can have a quick look at. Now we get to have a bit more of a deep dive into the Javelins and the skills that they have. This one's pretty basic from the Interceptor, but the one thing I did want to highlight is that you can see the acid bomb or an acid effect going on the enemies. So when the Interceptor jumps into melees, he triggers the combo ability because melees count towards it. Acid abilities for the most part I think are primers, especially if there's like a acid cloud. You can combo with that and you can do combo damage. For the Interceptor, you of course get this aura around you. You can see that it's green, so that means that you're doing acid damage. Really cool sort of integral thing for the Interceptor, and if you hit other enemies with your melee, I think that will pass the effect on or just do extra melee acid damage. Another example of the Ranger using the ultimate, I just wanted to highlight how pretty the Javelin suit looks from here, but fairly straightforward. The next clip is much more interesting, as you can see, again, flying with your ultimate, throwing it headfirst into an Ash Titan. I think that's pretty badass. I think a lot of players that weren't considering the Ranger up until now might just have been turned a little bit in this gameplay. I know I certainly have. Then you have the Colossus using a couple of the abilities. You can't see the UI unfortunately in this, but you get to see the railgun being used and then a single mortar, blowing up the turret and doing some extra damage to everybody around, just finishing off the scars with your main weapon. And then lastly, the Storm, you use your Lightning Strike ability, the Frost Shards, and then the Lightning Strike ability again. So maybe that's a build where the Storm has a really short cooldown on his main ability that you can just keep spamming it down, you know what I mean? So I think that's going to be a real good example of how good the Storm can be if you're just constantly throwing lightning at the enemy. Also, this boss, whatever it is, I didn't encounter this in Stockholm, I don't believe, but it does look pretty badass. Can't wait to kill one of them. Not too much to highlight here other than the fact that these Javelins look amazing. This first orange and black one, pretty cool. As a Hull City fan, I really like it, but I assume that a lot of people have unsubscribed knowing that now I am a Hull City fan. But the rest of them look really solid as well. I'm going to be terrible at making pretty Javelins, I'm telling you. Now, this is pretty interesting. We get a closer look at the UI. It's been updated. Basically, this is the general gear system, how it works. You have an overall gear score, which is accumulated by the rest of your gear pieces. You have the 36 on the scout rifle, level 40 Avenging Herald masterwork weapon, and then some other bits and pieces. The weird thing about this is the legendary spark beam. I don't know why it's got legendary in the title. Most masterwork abilities, instead of be called a masterwork spark beam, have a unique name, like Master Sparker, I don't know, you know what I mean, like it's a different name because it's like a legendary. So I'm not quite sure what the deal is there. You have Explosive Blaze, which again I think is a masterwork ability that doesn't quite have the colours, and of course the Bulwark Point. You then get a better look at some of the abilities. Just you can see the Avenging Herald weapon, not quite sure what weapon type that is. Then we look at the components, and the combined arms one, this masterwork one, we've seen before. It was actually in the Ranger livestream going over masterwork and endgame weapons and abilities and loadouts, basically, where if you kill an enemy with one ability, that ability that this masterwork item is for, then the other ability that you have does more damage if you use it straight afterwards. So really cool masterwork. I'm not quite sure what tactical advantage does, but no doubt it does something pretty cool, hopefully. Now, this is something that not a lot of people knew about. You can have loadouts in the game. They can vary. I think you can have 5 in total if you're looking at the top here, but you can see John Warner's loadouts are very similar to default loadout. Ranger Firepower, which as you can see is level 1 on everything, but you get the idea that you have the basic abilities. Then you go to Ranger Solo, which is a bit more sought out. You can see that he has different weapons, a blast missile, secret grenades, bulwark point, all really good for solo play, as you can imagine, hence the name. And then Ranger Support, which we go into a bit more detail, showing exactly what this build has and why it's a support ranger, even though it doesn't technically heal anyone. The abilities that this javelin has is 2 primers. They have the frost grenade, and then they have some venom darts as well, both of which you can tell are primers because of the little icons in the top right of the main ability icon thing, if that makes sense. I'll try and highlight this so you can see it a little bit more. Both of these abilities are priming, so they're really good if you're with a Colossus that has detonated big like machine guns, big missiles, big explosive mortars that can combo with them. So effectively, you are the person on your team that's going to set up everybody whilst the rest of your team tries to knock them down. That's generally how the priming detonating effect works. You then, of course, have the Bulwark Point, which protects you. It gives you a little bit of a shield, as opposed to the Muster Point, which again you can see on screen now, which actually everybody that's in it gets increased gun damage by 20% on a basic one. We also see an epic version of the Muster Point, which includes a few more bits and pieces. You can see that the main stat is the recharge rate, how quickly you can get the Muster Point off cooldown again, basically, and then the overall health. And then you have the Bulwark Point, which is the one that we just spoke about that protects your team. You can see that the main stat is the health that the shield has. So they're the 2 main things that the Bulwark Point is merited on. Like the main stats that you want is the duration of cooldown, so you can get it a lot quicker, and the actual health that your shield has. The more health, the better your shield is, basically. And of course, the rarity gives you more inscriptions. It says 10% speed, but I don't know if it's 10% speed to bring the shield out, or whether that's 10% speed on duration. Not quite sure on that one personally. A very quick look at a Stronghold. We don't know which one it is, but we can see that there's a lot of scars there ready to kill. And then we go into a mission fighting a Fury, which is one of the Dominion's main animal monster things. Really don't want to mess with these too much, but I wanted to really highlight the weapons and loadouts of both of these javelins, the Ranger, the Storm. This is the same Ranger that we saw earlier on in this video, but it's a different loadout. You know, the bright blue one, the one that's in the thumbnail. Really like that design, by the way, hence why I used it. But you have the Inferno Grenade that this Ranger is using, and of course the Blast Missile, Bulwark Point to protect yourself in case you need it. And your ultimate's ready, so you're going to throw that in whenever you can. You can see already that this Fury basically wipes out the entire Ranger's shields, that he has to be very careful as takes enough damage, he goes down to half health, puts down his shield, tries to survive, just throwing out a chunk of damage, uses the blast missile. Then we cut to the Storm that's raining hell from above. He has the lightning strike, and he also has a fireball, which he's using to just try and do as much damage as possible. It seems that the Fury is focusing on the Ranger at this point because it's right in front of him. He also has the Nexus ability. I think they changed the name of this. I'm not 100% sure. I need to double check. But it basically decreases the cooldown of everybody's abilities who's in that aura. So I think this gets placed down now, and you can see how quickly their abilities come off cooldown. Really good if you want to burst down a target that's honestly going to kill you a lot faster than you'll kill them. Gives you that advantage a little bit. Then when the Fury is relatively low health, both the Javelins decide to just throw their ultimates at it to burst it down in one final flush and manage to get the kill. Now this is pretty interesting. This is the end of expedition screen. You get to see how much XP that you got, your challenges that you managed to do, bits and pieces. You also see all of the loot that you picked up, because if you haven't noticed, I don't know if it's any examples in this gameplay per se, but you get common item, uncommon item, rare item in the bottom right when you pick up some loot. You don't know what it is, which I kind of don't like, but I understand it. But what's really cool is that if you get some masterwork gear, you get this custom screen, and you can see that our character picked up the reinforced hull masterwork component, which I guess increases your health and armor, and no doubt another perk as well, which we don't quite know because we never saw it. Now we get to look at an Interceptor for some free play gameplay. You can see the abilities, Vengeance Scouts are the weapons, Spark Dash, which is pretty cool, Target Beacon, which increases the damage that the target takes when you use this ability on them, and Shadow Claw, which I think is Wraith Strike. It has a different name. Maybe this is the Masterwork one, which again, the UI isn't quite lining up, that this level 2 Shadow Claw ability is actually Masterwork or Legendary. It's just not showing, but we get to see that in action, and it's a pretty cool ability. Again, very beautiful Interceptor we're seeing here. One thing I wanted to highlight here is the 2 emotes being shown off. You have this crane kick that's gone Ori, and just a Colossus bouncing around like crazy, like a big rabid dog. Makes me miss my German Shepherd that's up in Yorkshire, to be honest. It's kind of the same thing. And then a highlight of the gameplay, you have the Colossus jumping in, all guns blazing. We can look at his abilities. He has a high impact mortar in the middle. You have on the right, you have the railgun. Then on the far left, you have the taunt ability, which we do get to see. You can see that the Colossus lets out a big roar and basically gets all of these targets with red icons on their head to attack him, which opens up avenues for the Interceptor to dive in with a Spark Dash, which is an amazing ability that I got to use myself. Honestly loved it, didn't want to put it down. Then just basically going melee, absolute ham on the sort of enemies that are there, kind of incapacitated because they're too busy focusing on the Colossus. Then you also see the Shadow Claw, Wraith Strike ability coming through, killing an enemy, and again the Spark Dash being able to be used on a target that's been affected by the target beacon, so they take more damage. And that's everything that I wanted to go over in this video. There's so much stuff here that I really wanted to show it all in one quick succession. I didn't want to sort of waste people's time, just get all of the important bits of information, put it in this video so you can enjoy it. But I would definitely recommend watching this whole demo video because it's pretty cool. You can tell it by where I've put a lot of time and effort into it. And then of course the live stream going over weapons and all that good stuff. Thanks for watching. Thank you very much for all of the support. We hit 10,000 subscribers yesterday, which is pretty crazy. I love you guys so much. I appreciate all of the support that we've had. We've not even sort of hit the VIP demo, and we're growing massively quickly. So now that I can actually talk to you face to face, thank you so much. If you haven't subscribed already, it would mean the world to me, and you can enter a giveaway from doing it. So there will be more giveaways straight after this one ends as me saying thank you. So do keep an eye out for that. Don't unfollow me from Twitter just yet or anything, but thanks for watching. I'll see you guys very soon. Take care and have a good weekend. See you soon.